They say the longest road isn't the one with the most miles, but the one with the fewest reasons to stop. For a trucker like me, that's just another Tuesday. My rig is my home, the drone of the Cummins diesel is my music, and the white lines the only things that never lie. I'm a creature of habit and highway. I've seen sunrises over the Rockies that could make a preacher weep, and sunsets in the Mojave that looked like the world's on fire. I've seen things out here in the dead of night, strange things that you only see when the world is asleep and you're the only one awake, pushing 100,000 pounds of steel through the darkness. Little flickers of light that don't belong, shapes on the roadside that look almost human until you're right on top of them. But nothing in 30 years of hauling ever prepared me for what I found off a forgotten stretch of Route 66 in Oklahoma.
It started with a detour, a nasty pileup on I-40 just west of Oklahoma City. From its CB chatter, it was a bad one. A cattle hauler had overturned. The highway was a parking lot of red and blue flashing lights, a wall of officialdom telling everyone to turn back. The state troopers, faces grim under their wide-brimmed hats, were diverting all heavy traffic onto the old highways, the ones the interstate killed decades ago. I didn't mind. Sometimes it's nice to get off the monotonous concrete slab and see a bit of the real country, the bones of America. This part of Oklahoma is flat, so flat you feel like you can see the curve of the earth. The sky is immense, a black ocean full of cold, distant stars. It was late, maybe 2 in the morning. My coffee was long cold and the talk radio was just static and fire and brimstone preachers promising damnation to anyone listening at this ungodly hour. I was in that trance-like state every long-haul driver knows, where your body's on autopilot and your mind is just floating. It's a dangerous place to be, but sometimes you can't help it.
That's when I saw it. Off to my right, maybe a half-mile from the road, was a light. Not a bright light, not a farmhouse porch light or the harsh floodlights of a gas station. It was a soft, pale, rectangular glow hanging in the middle of absolute nothingness. It didn't flicker or waver, it just was. A perfect silver rectangle against the ink-black prairie. Curiosity is a dangerous thing on these empty roads, but so is monotony. I hadn't seen another pair of headlights for an hour. My schedule was already shot to hell by the detour, so I did something I rarely do. I slowed my rig, the air brakes hissing in the profound silence, and turned onto a dirt track I almost missed. It was more of a suggestion of a road than a real one. The path was overgrown. Dry branches scraping and squeeching against my cab like bony fingers trying to get in. My headlights cut a tunnel through a blizzard of dust and agitated moths. As I got closer, the shape became clearer. It was a screen. A massive, old-fashioned movie screen held up by a skeletal metal frame, rusted and decaying like the ribcage of some long-dead beast. The light was coming from it. I had stumbled upon an old drive-in movie theater, a relic from another time, left to rot in the middle of the prairie. But the screen wasn't just glowing. There were images on it. A film was playing. Faint, ghostly shapes moved across its weathered surface in silent black and white motion. I killed my engine and my lights, and the sudden plunge into near-total darkness and silence was deafening. The only sounds were the ticking of my cooling engine and the mournful whisper of the wind through the tall grass. And there, parked dead center in the first row of what used to be a parking lot, was a single car.
A place like that should have been dead quiet, but it wasn't. The silence itself had a weight to it, a pressure against my eardrums, as if the air was thick with things unsaid. The wind made a low humming sound as it weaved through the rows of speaker poles. They stood like an army of rusty skeletal sentinels, their coiled cables long since rotted away and hanging like dead vines. The concession stand was a collapsed husk of cinder blocks and peeling paint, its windows dark and empty, like the vacant eyes of a skull. Everything screamed abandonment, decay, and the slow grinding victory of a man's creations. Everything except that screen.
It glowed with a clean, ethereal silver light, a stark contrast to the surrounding ruin. The movie playing was old, impossibly old. From the clothes and cars, I'd guess the 1940s or 50s. A handsome man in a sharp suit and a fedora was arguing with a beautiful woman in a long, elegant dress. That was no sound, no dramatic music, no shouting, no dialogue. They just moved their mouths, gesticulating with a kind of frantic, silent desperation. It was deeply unsettling, like watching a memory someone had forgotten to turn off, doomed to repeat itself for no audience.
My eyes kept being drawn back to the car. It was the only other thing in that whole place that seemed out of time. It wasn't a wreck, it was a classic, something straight out of the movie on the screen. A two-tone Chevrolet, maybe a Bel Air, with those iconic tail fins like something out of a dream. Its paint was faded, turquoise and white, I thought, and I could see a film of dust on its chrome, but it didn't look like it had been sitting there for 60 years. It looked like it had been parked there last night. I sat there in my cab for a long time, just watching, trying to make sense of it. Was it some art installation? A film crew shooting something? I scanned the area for generators, for other vehicles, for any sign of life. Nothing. Just me, my rig, and that impossible scene.
I kept my headlights off, but the glow from the screen was enough to see the shapes inside the Chevy. Two of them. Silhouettes, sitting in the front seat, side by side. A driver and a passenger. Perfectly still, their heads pointed straight at the silent drama unfolding on the screen, just like any other couple on a date night 60 years ago. I run on logic, fuel, mileage, weight, time. That's my world. This didn't fit into any of it. A cold knot tightened in my stomach. This felt wrong. Profoundly wrong, like I had stumbled onto a private moment, something not meant for riveting eyes.
I put my rig back in gear, the engine rumbling to life and shattering the oppressive silence. The sound felt like a sacrilege. I decided to just get back to the highway and put this place in my rearview mirror for good. I had to pass the car to get back to the entrance. I flipped my headlights on, their bright beams cutting through the gloom. My lights swept across the side of the Chevy as I made the slow, heavy turn. The beams illuminated the faded paint, a small patch of rust on the door, the dry-rotted rubber of a tire. And that's when it happened. As the cone of my headlights washed over their windshield, the two silhouettes inside the Chevy turned at their heads in perfect, fluid unison. They didn't move their bodies, just their heads. A slow, deliberate rotation from the screen to my cab. They were just shadows, indistinct shapes against the glow of the movie screen behind them. I couldn't see faces, no eyes, no features, but I swear on my life, I felt their gaze. It was a physical force, a wave of coldness and ancient placid curiosity that hit me right in the chest and stole my breath.
The air in my cab grew instantly frigid. It wasn't an angry look. It wasn't threatening. It was just watching, acknowledging me, seeing me. And in that one silent, shared moment, I knew with absolute certainty that I was the intruder here. I didn't just pull away. I stomped on the accelerator, my tires spinning in the loose dirt, throwing gravel against my own mud flaps with a series of sharp cracks. I didn't look in my rearview mirror. I couldn't. I had a horrifying fear that if I did, I'd see their car pulling out behind me, its headlights off, just silently following. I just drove, hell for leather, my knuckles wide on the steering wheel until the dirt track met the cracked asphalt of the old highway. I didn't slow down until the pale glow of the screen was completely gone, swallowed by the vast, unforgiving Oklahoma darkness. My heart was hammering against my ribs like a trapped bird. My hands were slick with sweat. I'm not a man who scares easy. I've dealt with jackknives on black ice, blown tires at 70 miles an hour, and shady characters at lonely truck stops who look at you like they're sizing you up for a shallow grave. But this was different. I drove for another hour, constantly checking my mirrors, half expecting to see those two-tone tail fins.
I didn't see a single other vehicle until the warm, greasy glow of a 24-hour diner appeared on the horizon. The Prairie Dog Diner, the sign buzzed, half its neon letters dead. It looked like heaven. I pulled my rig into the empty lot. I needed coffee. I needed to see another human face. The place smelled of stale coffee and bacon. A lone waitress, a woman with tired eyes, was wiping down the counter. Her name tag read Brenda. "Coffee. Black," I said, my voice hoarse.
She poured it without a word. After a few minutes of silence, I couldn't hold it in. "Hey," I started, trying to sound casual. "I was on that old highway, the 66 detour. Saw something weird a while back, an old drive-in theater." Brenda stopped wiping. She didn't look at me, but her whole body went still. "The Starlight," she said, her voice flat. "Been closed since forever. The county condemned it back in the 60s. "Well, it wasn't closed tonight," I said. "The screen was on, and there was a car there." She finally turned to look at me. Her eyes were dark and serious. "Let me guess. A 57 Chevy? Two-tone? Turquoise and white?" The coffee mug felt ice cold in my hands. "Yeah, how did you know that?"
Brenda sighed and leaned against the counter. "You ain't the first driver to come in here white as a ghost after taking that detour. Here's an old story. Back in '58, a young couple went missing. High school sweethearts, Jimmy and Rose. The whole town loved them. They went to the Starlight Drive-In on the night of their graduation. They were last seen pulling in his brand new Chevy." She paused, looking out into the darkness. "They never came out. Police searched for weeks, found nothing. Not the kids, not the car. It was like they just vanished from their seats between the start of the movie and the end credits. The drive-in closed a year later. No one wanted to go there anymore. So, what am I supposed to have seen?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. "A ghost?" Brenda shrugged. "Some people say they never left, that on certain nights they come back to finish their movie. Whatever you saw, driver, my advice is you forget it. Some places hold on tighter than most. Don't go looking for it again." For 3 weeks, I tried to follow her advice. I tried to bury the memory under thousands of miles of fresh asphalt, but it didn't work. The memory was a splinter, working its way deeper. Every time I drove at night, I'd see a faint light and my heart would seize up. The image of those two silhouettes turning was burned into the back of my eyelids. Was it real, or was I just bone-tired? I had to know. And as fate would have it, a new job came up. Tulsa to Amarillo. The route went straight through the heart of Oklahoma, straight past that detour. When the time came, as my GPS told me to stay on I-40, I felt my hand steer the rig onto the exit ramp. It was like a magnet was pulling me back. This time, I stopped my rig a quarter mile away and grabbed my most powerful flashlight. I walked, and there it was again. The same pale rectangular glow in the distance. The same silent movie. It was real. It hadn't been a dream. I moved slowly, using the rusted speaker poles for cover. The scene was exactly as I'd left it. I got to the driver's side window, my body tense, expecting those silhouettes to turn. I held my breath and peered inside. The car was empty, completely empty. The bench seat was cracked leather, spilling and stuffing. A dizzying mix of relief and confusion washed over me. My hand trembled as I reached out and pulled the handle. The door was unlocked. It groaned open, the sound echoing like a gunshot. The moment it opened, a smell wafted out. Old perfume, gasoline, and ozone. I flicked on my flashlight. Lying there on the dusty floor mat was a small, withered corsage. A white rose, tied with a faded silk ribbon. A chill crawled up my spine. This was their car. I slowly pushed the door shut. Then I looked back at the car. For a single horrifying heartbeat,
They were there, solid and dark, looking right at me. I blinked, and they were gone. The car was empty again. At that exact moment, the screen flickered, flashed brilliant white, and went black. I was plunged into absolute darkness. I ran. I never drove that road again. I'll take a 100-mile detour to avoid it, but I know what I saw. So now, when some rookie driver starts talking about shortcuts, I tell him a story. And if you're ever driving through the Oklahoma plains and you see a faint glow off the highway, just keep on driving.